Please enjoy this talk given at the Austin Center for Spiritual Living, where we live and teach the principles of science of mind and spirit. For more information, visit austincsl.org.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. What a delightful day this is. And what a delight it is to look out there and see all your shining faces. I say that every Sunday, don't I? And you know it's the truth. That's why I say it. Anyway, it's good to be here. I want to start with a little story. Appeared in Time magazine some time ago. Few events carried such a clear cosmic message as the running of the Kentucky Derby, May 12, 1975. While two horses fight for the lead, a third came from behind and walked away with the purse. The two horses, intent only on bumping each other for the forward position, were Avatar and Diablo. Avatar means deity. Diablo means devil. So while the deity contended with the devil, who dashed first? Foolish pleasure. Who won the race. Isn't that a wonderful story and a wonderful lesson for most of us? I mean, for most of us. Well, yeah, most of us. Except me. I understood all this stuff to start with. Anyway, it's really wonderful to be here today. There's an old statement that I have used over and over and over, and I've even used it as the title of a talk one time, and that is, if you do the things you know you need to do, you cannot possibly fail. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. I'm going to be talking about 6 practical keys for spiritual living. And if we live these principles, if we work at living these principles, I don't know how any of us ever fully commits to everything that I'm going to be talking about here, but we can work at it and we find ourselves beginning to expand in it as we go through this whole process of life. And so I want to start with these, and I think I'll just take them one at a time. I was going to read them all to you, but you'll forget them anyway, so I'll just take them and introduce each as I come to them. I believe it's in your program anyway, isn't it? Oh, heck, let's talk about something else. Just read those, take them with you, and study, discuss it. No, you're not going to get off that easily. The first one of these says that essentially that the way we think about ourselves, the way we see ourselves, our self-concept is going to be expressed in every part of our life. The way it's put here is your self-concept will always be incarnated in your life as action. In other words, we are going to respond to life. We are going to step out and do according to the way that we tend to feel about ourselves. You know, if we feel like we're kind of worthless, we tend to shrink away from life. If we feel like we're really in the image and likeness of God, that's something that we want to express. If we recognize that there's a capacity and an intelligence within us for being able to make a contribution, we have a tendency to approach life that way. So our self-concept is going to incarnate itself in our life according to the way we see ourselves. And we're going to take actions that are going to lead to results that correspond to that. And the process is real simple. It's like this. You have a self-confidence. A self-concept. That leads to a self-confidence. The self-confidence leads to the kind of decision, the quality of decision that you make. And that decision, of course, is going to express itself in action and give you the results of your life. So it's that simple. Self-concept, self-confidence, decision, action, and results. That's what this really means. And it all starts with how you see yourself. The second key of these has to do with how we relate to things. Anything that you hate, anything that you criticize, anything that you shun is going to diminish in your life. On the other hand, what you appreciate is going to appreciate. How often do we sit around and we gritch, gripe, moan, and complain about something? I mean, I can raise my hand to that, to the fact that, and my wife will attest to it, that I can do that on a regular basis if I allow myself to. But you see, every time I do that, it diminishes my life. Because what it does is it creates a barrier around whatever it is that I really feel within me that wants to express, but instead I've got these ideas. And some of the ideas that are embraced by some people are ideas like, well, lack. There's just a lack. There just ain't enough to go around. And when we conceptualize the idea of lack, what happens is that we really dull our perception. And when we dull our perception, when that happens, it destroys our dreams. And we fail to see the real possibilities that life holds. So yeah, but life doesn't hold any possibilities for me. I remember reading a book called A Critical Path, which was the last book that Buckminster Fuller wrote. And some of you know who Buckminster Fuller was. He was a great scientist, engineer, architect, philosopher, politician. I guess he was a politician. He certainly influenced politics. Great guy. And in that book, he tells about an experience in his life with a bunch of students. They did a study. He had his students go to work on compiling a list of all of the resources of the earth. Now, mind you, that's the kind of thing that you can't ever complete, because it's never going to be complete. But they brought it to a certain point where they finally were able to sit back and then convert all of these resources into some kind of a dollar amount, a monetary value. And what they came up with was a very interesting number. And that is, for every person on the face of the earth, their share is $4 billion. Isn't that incredible? Of course, I ask, where's mine? But of course, we also know that there tends to be a great distribution here. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, necessarily, because some people just need a whole lot more than other people in order to do whatever it is that they're here to do in this life. So this brings up another little question that's kind of a sidelight over here, but ask yourself, what is it that I really need to do? And can I believe that the universe is going to provide me with the resources that are necessary for me to be able to give expression to my life, so I can fully do this, be who I am? And a lot of people shut that off altogether. I mean, you may need $10 million in order to be able to bring to fruition the wonderful ideas or concepts that you have. On the other hand, you may need 500 to do that. But do you have the consciousness to embrace that? And each one is equally important, by the way, because it has to do with giving expression to that which is innate within you. But instead, we get all caught up with what the lack is. And you know, one of the ways that we show this often is that we find it enormously difficult to acknowledge the good in others. How many of you can really rejoice? Hey, that's a pretty good word, isn't it? How many of you can really rejoice in the good of other people? You know, the person that lives in the big house on top of the hill seems to have everything that he or she could possibly want. They say, well, why should I rejoice in that? Well, I don't know. But on the other hand, how often do we criticize that? How often do we somehow or another create resentments that we carry around? They have so much and I have so little. Never really looking at what we have and what we need to give expression to our own life. We have no way of judging about that sort of thing. And yet we have a tendency to do that, and every time we do it, we create some kind of a blockage around us, don't we? There's some kind of a barrier there that limits what we're going to experience in life or can experience in life. How well do you rejoice in the good of other people? How well can you accept the good of material resources in your life? How well do you accept money as something good? You like it and you want it and you need it and you work for it. And you either hoard it or you blow it. And sometimes some of us are responsible for it. But how much do you really accept it as a really good thing? Money is the root of all evil. I don't believe that. Money just represents our energy. And it's good and bad, or bad, and bad, according to how we use it in our life. It's a big hang-up for a lot of us. This idea that anything that you hate, anything that you criticize, or anything that you shun, you're going to diminish in your life. Now, there's nothing wrong with things, and we need things in life. We need things in life for what they can do, but not necessarily for what they are. A thing is just a thing. And a lot of times, people idealize the things and they seek to achieve something or acquire something, and they do it for no other reason than having to have it in their life because it gives us a sense of security to be there. And that's not all that bad. I like to have at least 6 to 8 months of resources available to me at any time, so that if there are those circumstances that come up in life, that do occasionally for some of us, I will have what I need, be able to get through that period of time. That's nice. But that's not the same thing as hoarding it out of fear that I'll never have it, because it's not doing any good for you. Now, we need the things in our life. We need them for what they can do, as I say, but not for what they are. And there are numerous vehicles or tools that are available to us that are going to help us facilitate our use of the abundance that is all around us and open us to the recognition of that abundance. And we look around us and sometimes we don't recognize the real abundance that is available to us. How about your health? How many of us really are grateful for the health that we have? And I know there are some people whose health is a lot better than other people's health. I know some people are dealing with certain kinds of limitations. But how grateful are we for what we do have that allows us to function at a level that really does fulfill our needs and satisfies our experience of life? How much do we really appreciate our talents and the relationships that we have? When you no longer are compelled to possess something, that thing is no longer going to possess you. That's the third key here. And have you ever noticed when you become compulsively attached to something being a particular way or having to have something, that so very often it so occupies your mind that you are not really enjoying the process of life or whatever that thing might be bringing into your life or potentially bringing into your life? This is what I mean by that one statement. When you're no longer compelled to possess things, they no longer possess you. Instead, what they become to you are those things that make easy your ability to be able to facilitate your life. In other words, they become facilities. A facility is facile, means easy, and a facility is something that is made easy for you or helps you to make some process or something in your life relatively easy. And your level of that facility, meaning the level that you have, that something that we're calling a facility, that's something that makes easier the process of life. The level of that facility in your life is going to meet and expand according to your level of being able to use it wisely and productively in your life. Think about that. Does that make sense to you? Is that just a big garble of words? You know, there are tools out there. And tools don't do any good if they're just in the toolbox. But you learn to use them. That's your level of facility. Your level of facility using a particular thing that's going to facilitate an action in your life. And your level of ability to use that is going to determine and expand your level to be able to use it even more productively and usefully in your life. It's such a simple principle that maybe I'm overdoing it by talking too much about it. But yet it's vital. One of the things that we need to learn is to be able to truly trust in life and trust in the flow of life. And when we talk about being in the flow of life, a lot of times people say, well, what do you really mean about that? Well, I kind of have a little picture in my mind about the flow of life. And it's like we live in this stream of life, and the stream of life is filled full of turns, obstacles, branches hanging out from the bank, rocks in the middle of it, waterfalls, all sorts of things. And we tend to live in this stream of life. And it's always going in a particular direction. And actually, we are part of that stream of life. And if we learn to align ourselves with the flow, we'll find that we will flow naturally with it. If we're going crosswise to it, if we're trying to swim back upstream, we find sooner or later we're going to get worn out and we're going to be taken by it anyway and rush down this stream of life. In other words, be taken along through the process that we're living right now. So this is where it's important to be awake. The stream may not be the most pleasant place to be at times. We may have to navigate some of the obstacles that we run into. But this is why it's important that we be awake. And we trust in the flow because it's going to be taking us in a direction that is natural. And ultimately we're going to end up down at the sea, which is the infinitude of it all. You know, we all go to heaven if you want to look at it that way. I don't believe in heaven, by the way. I believe in eternal life, but I don't believe in heaven or hell, that stuff. But you get the idea that I'm talking about. We trust in the flow of life. If we are experiencing lack in any particular area of our life, what we're doing is we're taking ourselves out of the flow of life. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't resistances, but when we define those resistances as real lack, being an absolute, then I think what we do is we create a limitation on our ability to conceptualize the free flow and the openness and the actual abundance of life itself. If you're experiencing life in a lack in a particular area of your life, I think you're saying, I am out of the flow of life. So I think it's useful to ask the question every once in a while of yourself and really sit and be with it. Am I out of flow with the life? Am I in flow with life itself? Interestingly, one of the ways I think that we can get into the flow of life is through giving. What is the most natural inclination of the universe itself? It's to love, isn't it? And a lot of people don't really think about this. I love what Ernest Holmes says in his textbook, the big book that Barbara was showing you earlier here today, under the definition, dealing with love, divine love. And as he points out, divine love is life, spirit, giving of itself to its creation. So loving is giving. Loving is an outpouring of itself to the experience of life itself. And that's what we're talking about here. Getting into the flow of life, because it is the very nature of spirit to give of itself to its creation. What does your creation look like? And how much of you are you giving to that creation? And what does giving mean? Well, that is entirely up to you. But we all have things that we're concerned with, like relationships and health and substance and monetary considerations, finances and talents and all of these kinds of things. They're all considerations that we have. How much am I really pouring of those gifts, of those qualities into my creation? One way to get into the flow of life is to give the very thing that we think we want. Because you see, by doing that is the acknowledgement that we have it to give, and more is going to show up for us in the process. This is what this divine creative flow is all about. And which brings me to another point. And this is the fifth point on the list of keys that I included in your bulletin this morning. And that's very simple. You don't give to get. And we have statements in various scriptures that say, as you give, so shall you get. So I am going to give and give and give because I want to get. That's not real giving. That's conditional. But it's a principle that really works. And it'll probably work a little bit, even from that particular viewpoint. Simply because it is a principle. I think it'll work a little bit. But we don't give to get. We give because it's our very nature to give. And that's what I was talking about earlier. It's the Spirit pouring itself into its own creation. A lot of people think about being in the flow as being the terminus of the flow. That is, I want to get into the flow because I want it all to flow into me. And then I'm going to put it all in a bucket and I'm going to have it over here. But you see, there's an infinite variety of everything available to us. And so what flows to us must flow through us in order for us to be able to fully experience the benefit of that good. So we become part of this whole process. The flow of life is not something that ends with us. It passes through you. And what flows through you must first flow to you. So don't you think it's appropriate, and that it may be time that most of us get into the flow of life. And I think we know how to do that. Let's quiet ourselves for a few moments. Have a bit of prayer. Let's take a nice deep breath. And be reminded that there is only one life, and that is the life of God. And because it is only one life, it is the only life that I can have. That life contains all the attributes of whatever is necessary for me and everyone here and everyone everywhere to be fully expressed in balance and harmony, using the gifts and the talents that are innate within to make the contribution for which each of us is here. It is power, it is presence, it is balance, it is harmony, it is joy, it is health. It is insight, creativity, and intelligence. And above all, it is love. That is my life. That is the life of everyone here. And it is in the realization of those attributes that our lives are healed. That is, our lives express the wholeness of their innate nature right now, right here. I truly give thanks that this is so. I accept it as so. I allow it to be so. And together we declare, and so it is.